My brother-in-law just told my wife that he's in love with her? My brother-in-law just told my wife that he's in love with her. This man, who married my sister, confessed his feelings to my wife, leading to a series of horrifying discoveries within our family. Yesterday, my brother-in-law suddenly contacted my wife and asked if she could join him for lunch. He said he had something important to tell her in person. When my wife mentioned this invitation to me, she seemed puzzled but didn't take it too seriously. "Do you think this has to do with my sister?" she asked, furrowing her brow. "Maybe there's an issue between them and he wants to get a woman's perspective." Although I found it a bit odd, my brother-in-law had previously sent messages to family members for various trivial reasons, so I didn't think much of it. Our family has always been close-knit, and mutual support is not unusual. The next day at noon, my wife went to the agreed-upon cafe. It's a place she frequents, with a comfortable environment and a bustling crowd that made her feel relatively safe. She arrived a few minutes early, chose a table by the window, and prepared to listen to whatever he had to say. A few minutes later, my brother-in-law walked in, looking more nervous than usual. After a brief exchange of pleasantries and talking about kids and family matters, the atmosphere quickly grew tense. After a few seconds of silence, my brother-in-law suddenly spoke up. "You know, from the first time I met you, I've been attracted to you." My wife was stunned. She hadn't expected him to start like that. He continued, "You are the light of my life. I've been suppressing my feelings, but I can't hold back anymore. I love you, and if you were mine, I'd treat you like a queen." My wife was completely shocked and didn't know what to say. This man, who married my sister and is the father of their two children, was confessing his love to her. His confession was so direct and raw, as if he had been waiting for this moment for years. He told her he had been silently watching her, believing she was the one truly meant for him. My wife tried to stop him, telling him it was a huge misunderstanding, but he was clearly lost in his own fantasy and refused to listen. He continued to declare his feelings, describing how wonderful their life together would be. Unable to bear it any longer, she abruptly stood up, causing her chair to screech loudly against the floor. She hurriedly left, not even looking back at him. When my wife called me and told me everything, my first reaction was anger and disbelief. My brother-in-law, someone we had always trusted, had such vile thoughts about my wife. He not only shattered our family's trust, but also tried to impose this chaos on us. As my wife and I spoke, his text messages continued to flood her phone. They were full of apologies, regrets, and even pleas for her not to tell my sister. Later, I had my wife take one of his calls on speakerphone. I wanted to hear how he would explain everything. On the other end of the line, his voice was choked with emotion as he repeatedly said he made a big mistake, begging us not to let my sister find out. He even swore that this was just a momentary infatuation and that he had never been unfaithful to my sister. But the more he said, the more repulsive it became. He even tried to shift the blame to my wife, claiming her kindness had made him think she felt the same way. Hearing this, I knew he was no longer trustworthy. I told him I would decide what to do tomorrow and would not take any action today. But things didn't stop there. That night, in a fit of frustration, my wife accidentally sent a text message to my brother-in-law containing the conversation records between them. It wasn't long before my sister saw that text. She couldn't understand all the details but felt a vague sense of threat. She started reaching out to my wife, wanting to know the truth. At this point, my wife had to confront her concerns and reveal the entire situation. Upon learning the truth, my sister was devastated but couldn't fully believe her husband would do such a thing. She decided to give him a chance to explain, hoping he could clarify things. When she confronted him directly, my brother-in-law's response was even more shocking. He not only refused to admit fault, but also attempted to blame the entire situation on the so-called problems in their marriage, suggesting that his behavior was a result of issues with my sister. This unexpected twist made my sister's pain even more profound, and her heartache was indescribable. She began questioning her trust in her husband and whether she truly knew this partner she once believed in. After a heated argument and struggle, my sister ultimately decided to take a firm stand and asked him to leave. Although it was not an easy decision, she knew she had to act courageously to seek a new life for herself and her children. She demanded that he leave their family, leaving behind all the hurt and irreparable damage. With my sister's resolve and courage, our family began to accept this massive upheaval. While the pain was still present, the support and resilience between us became our strength to move forward. Despite the near destruction of our family by my brother-in-law's betrayal, we managed to hold on and cherish each other more deeply. As for him, I don't know if he will ever grasp the severity of his actions, but I do know he will never have the chance to disrupt our family's peace and happiness again.